I bet you wish you was somewhere else, huh?
How could this happen to me?
Before I get started with this video, I need to ask you guys a serious question. Do I really sound like an AI? I've been asked a few times if I use an AI voice for these videos, and I have no idea why. All I do is write down my thoughts in a script, and then I try to read them in a clean and articulate way. I'm not trying to be flashy or over-exaggerated or anything, but if that's what it takes to prove I am made of organic material, then okay, get ready for this. Yeehaw, partner, we playing internet games on them Vigi machines. I hope that's good enough expression for one day, because I really don't think I need to put on an act like that. I just try to keep it real with what I think about the games. With that out of the way, today we're going to take a look at the Def Jam duo for the PS2. Thank you to those of you who voted on this during the Fight Night video. I have a lot of memories with this series, so I'm really excited to talk about it. I wickedly pulled my spring ligament last Thursday, so I've also had some extra time to think. Let's get started. Def Jam Vendetta, developed by Aki Corporation and EA Canada and published under the EA Sports Big label in 2003, is a wrestling game that features various Def Jam artists as characters. Prior to this, Aki Corporation was responsible for the development of Ultimate Muscle, Legends vs. New Generation. Some members of the Aki team previously worked on various WWF and WCW games, and there's no short supply of sports and action sports from Aki as well as EA Canada just everywhere. One of the most interesting credits I found was Daryl Anselmo. This dude was the mocap director for NBA Street, but something far more interesting is that he served as the graphics artist on Street Skater. I still haven't talked about that game, but I can confidently say I'm a fan of this guy's work. Considering the humongous amount of experience with wrestling and action sports games, it's no wonder that Vendetta turned out the way it did. I first played this back when I was like 10. I borrowed it for 2 days from a friend, and I remember just cranking away relentlessly until I beat it. I played Fight for New York first, but I won't lie, I didn't really understand how to actually play these games back then. I brute forced most of it. The story mode is charming as hell. You take on the role of one of a few different fighters, and you get a text from your homie Manny that says, "In too deep, need your fists." This is one of the most memorable opening scenes. It's so simple, but it has this no bullshit vibe that pumps you up and gets you ready. Vendetta doesn't exactly throw the whole story at your face. It builds up gradually over time. Manny here is sunk into gambling debt, and he needs the fighter's help to pay back the underground fight promoter D-Mob. The fighter has a personal beef with D-Mob for stealing his girlfriend. After fighting through a couple of venues, we find ourselves fighting through 2 different stories at once. In one story, Manny and the fighter are winning a tag team tournament to pay back Manny's debt to D-Mob. In the other story, the fighter is working his way through D-Mob's Def Jam tournament. It's sort of like every other fighting game, but with rappers and catch wrestling. I don't want to spoil too much of the ending, but spoiler alert, because of the story for the sequel, I do have to mention D-Mob gets arrested. I won't spoil any more than that because it's worth seeing for yourself if you haven't. That is, if you don't laugh yourself to death hearing the voice of Kratos play the part of D-Mob. Seriously, all I could think about the entire time I was playing was Kratos yelling. That definitely kept me hyped for every fight. The gameplay here is pretty standard as far as wrestling games go. You have an attack button, a grapple button, running, stage interaction, reversals, block, and you can jump off of the turnbuckle and run off of the ropes. On the MMA side of things, you can do various stuff like arm bars, the guillotine, knee bars, and throws, and other stuff. There are 3 ways to win a fight. First is to win by pin, which is standard for wrestling games. Next is to win by submission, which can be done by wearing down the health completely on a body part using grapples. The third way is to win by KO. I'm not sure if you can do this another way, but the way I do it is to fill the momentum meter and pull off a blazing move when my opponent's health is in the danger zone. I'm pretty sure that's the way it's meant to be done. I spent my time with this game playing on hard, which isn't really that hard once you figure out the trick to winning fights. The strategy is usually always reverse the hell out of stuff. Whatever you do during the reversal opening is entirely up to you, but reversal is a matter of survival. The first thing you should do if you've never played this game is learn the difference between grab reversal and punch reversal. The left bumper will dodge and reverse grabs. The right bumper will block and parry physical attacks. There are more advanced things about this game, like holding the attack or grab button to do more powerful stuff, pressing them together for a really hard hit, using a direction to change what throw you perform. You can grab over the ropes, under the ropes, on the ropes, and you can even grab your opponent after he's bounced off of the ropes. There are different pins, different fighting styles, unlockable main fighters, and if I sat here breaking down every move and what you could do individually, I would be here for an hour. This game doesn't have that same quirks of the precursor syndrome because of how much experience the teams had with making exactly this kind of game. game, but it does have one major problem that severely damages the flow of progress. Story mode tag team matches in this game are just abysmal. The first thing you'll notice is that the camera is bad, and not nearly isometric enough to make the four-person fight feel comfortable. Your tag partner and the opponent tag partner are constantly just getting in the way of fucking everything. Worse than that, the player side partner is completely useless. The opponent will do helpful stuff like rope breaks and attacks to stop a pin, and they perform duo throws. The player partner never makes it to a break fast enough, never protects the player during a pin or a grapple, and it's damn hard to time a duo throw with the AI. It's essentially like fighting a handicap 1 versus 3 match, but one guy refuses to hit you. It doesn't ruin the game, but it is a big part of it, and it makes it feel a lot more tedious every time. Visually, this game is inconsistent. The fighter models look cool, and the animations are top tier, but there are low-resolution billboard sprites everywhere to simulate the idea of a crowd, and it's honestly like 3 years behind everything else. K1 2001, on the exact same console, had 3D models in the foreground crowd, and the background crowd was densely populated with large moving sprites. King of Colosseum, from the exact same year, also had 3D models in the crowd. Vendetta just looks half-finished. Some stages look like complete ass, like they only got 1 day put into them, and then others look like they took a long time and a lot of effort, and there was a vision for all of this, it seems like. Even the things that didn't get finished still look like they had some idea. I don't know how long it took to produce, but I do know that a lot of it looks just as finished as it possibly could be to meet whatever the deadline was. Daryl Anselmo is a good artist with a damn good portfolio. A lot of this just looks like the pressure was weighing down the potential. Next, it's pretty much a given that there isn't any fighting footage or anything like that in this game, but there are a lot of very generic pictures of some of the girlfriends. Real shit, I don't care, and I don't think this is a good reward for my efforts. I just spent a few hours getting my ass kicked repeatedly, barely pulling through a lot of these fights. I don't want some fucking PG-13 glamour shots of models that I've never seen before. What about music videos or something? Surely Def Jam, the record label, had a few music videos around that they could spare to include as bonus unlockables. Big missed opportunity. I always talk about how life is short, and it's good to appreciate it and do what you love, so if what you love is staring at still images of girls, then this might be for you. But for me, it isn't a good reward for the time I spend playing. Finally, the soundtrack is damn good. There are appearances from every single one of the likeness fighters, and a few extra thrown in for good measure. A lot of it is greatest hits stuff and hype music made to fit the fighting mood. It would be almost criminal for a game named after a record label to not have great music from that label, so it's understandable why this one turned out so well. Since these two games are both heavily built around the music, I'll go ahead and leave a link to both of the soundtracks in the description. With that out of the way, I'll go ahead and give Def Jam Vendetta a rating of 7 out of 10. If it wasn't for the really bad tag team camera, the lack of real rewards, and the obviously unfinished visuals, this would definitely be a 9 out of 10 game. As far as wrestling games go, it's better than a lot of the WWF, WWE, and WCW games I've played. The Underground Fight Club story is great, the silent protagonist is hilarious, the fighting itself feels clean and fun, and there's a ton of replayability. This game is super charming for what it is, and it's still just as fun as it was when I was a kid. Except I'm not a complete idiot now. I don't really know what modern wrestling games are like. The last wrestling game I actually bought was WWE 13, and really I only bought that because CM Punk was on the cover art. But honestly, I think you would be hard-pressed to find a wrestling game as fun as this among the swell of modern games. Next up, Def Jam Fight for New York, released in 2004, is a bullshido pit fighting game and a direct sequel to Vendetta. The logo even is a V2, cause Vendetta 2. And I found this article from a long time ago, before the release of the game, where they called it Def Jam Vendetta 2. So, we can be pretty positive that it was supposed to be called Vendetta 2 originally. A whopping 103 people from the previous game returned to work on this one, with a few new added in for good measure. On top of that, there's a substantially larger list of likeness fighters. Josh Holmes went on the record talking a little bit about why this game took such a drastic leap away from the previous entry. Quote, both Aki and EAC wanted to create a fighting system that was revolutionary rather than evolutionary. We wanted to do a whole bunch of cool stuff that no one had ever pulled off in a convincing way. Man, I really miss that. The modern video game industry is a shell of what it used to be. I first played this when I was young, and I don't even know how long I spent playing it. Over the course of many years, Fight for New York was always one of those games where I could ask my brothers to play and they were down 100% of the time. It makes up a chunk of some of my best memories, and it's one of the most influential games from my entire childhood. The story picks up instantly at the end of the previous game. D-Mob is arrested and riding in the back of a police cruiser when suddenly, an RKO out of nowhere. After creating the greatest character in the history of of fighting games, we assist D-Mob in the recovery of his reputation after he completely lost his shit in the last game. Behind the scenes, a rival underground fight promoter named Crow, played by Snoop Dogg, is trying to take over D-Mob's territory and business. So this time, we as the fighter aren't in this for personal beef, this is strictly business, and the business is a turf war. Underneath all of that, there's the girlfriend story, beefs caused by your choices, betrayal, and a lot of things add up and contribute to who is fighting for who at the end. The writing is just as good as the structure. This game has such a wide variety of memorable quotes and moments and one-liners that it's hard to describe them all, so I'll just go ahead and show you a few.
Take that! Game over! That's why I'm the champ, bitch!
Well, if it ain't America's Most Wanted, that police composite don't do justice to your ugly face. Shut your mouth.
What are you suggesting? A truce?
Something much more interesting. A fight. Winner takes all.
And the loser?
The loser? Hell, I don't know. Loser goes to Jersey.
Say goodbye, bitch.
Goodbye, bitch.
Seriously, this is a masterclass in performance and comedy. Again, I don't want to spoil the ending for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, and this time, I don't have to spoil a portion of it because Def Jam Icon is mostly unrelated. The gameplay this time around is very similar to Vendetta in a lot of ways, but with a hell of a lot more built on top of that. The first thing you do after creating a character is pick a fighting style. There are 5 styles to choose from, and you can learn another style later on after you've put in some work. I went with a pure Street Fighter style for this video just to challenge myself, but I've experimented with all of them a lot. The martial arts / kickboxing style with a focus on speed and vitality is probably the most efficient if you're looking for an easy ride through the game. Needless to say, the actual variety of moves is a lot bigger this time around. Aside from the fighting styles, there's a massive variety of new and returning blazing moves. You don't actually need them this much though, because this is not a wrestling game anymore. It's still true to the wrestling game core that it was built on, but this is a pit fighter with pit fighter ideas. You can now knock out your opponents in a few different ways, like using a heavy punch, hitting with a weapon, smashing them into some stage object, and even a few stage fatalities like throwing your opponent in front of a train. Submissions are mostly the same, but pins are gone. The stages are really the focus of how the fight plays out this time. Most of the stages have crowds that throw you if you get too close, or hold you if you're unlucky. Some stages are completely boxed in by walls. I already mentioned stage fatalities, but there's also a stage where you can win by ring out. There's such a wide variety of venues, and the rules are so different that the actual way you fight within them changes a lot. Next to that, the camera for tag team matches has been fixed, and there's a whole new 4-person free-for-all tournament to fight through. The actual fighting is a hell of a lot more fluid this time around, and you're a lot less likely to get trapped in a stun lock unless you're fighting a really good player. Speaking of that, did you know there are a bunch of tournaments for this game? They're not like bullshit tournaments either, these are serious tournaments with a pretty massive following. Playing through this game on hard is pretty easy, but I don't think I would last against any of the competitive players. On that note, this game is definitely a lot easier to play than the last one, but that doesn't mean it isn't still challenging. Some fights are way easier than others, and I'm pretty sure the copyright protection for this game is to disable reversals at random, so playing it again wasn't the cakewalk I was expecting it to be. Visually, this is the exact upgrade that Vendetta needed. The crowds are made of 3D models, the stages have twice as much fine detail, and the animation as a whole has seen a massive amount of improvement. You can customize your fighter with all kinds of different cosmetics, and Manny makes a return in this game as the tattoo artist. The story hub screen is also a lot better this time. Instead of just a menu with messages and buttons, it's a whole crib with good amount of visual flair. You even have a trophy room. Messages are now delivered through a cell phone, and some characters prefer to send voice messages instead of text, so there's so much personality throughout this game that it should be taken and studied. It's a pinnacle of sequel development, and by itself it's a masterpiece. Next, you already know that there's no real-world footage. Really, there isn't anything. The unlockables in this game amount to fighters and stages, but honestly, it doesn't really matter this time. This game is constantly rewarding the player with cash to spend at every different cosmetic store to make the fighter that you really want to make, and that really is a better reward than the pictures of the models from the last game. You also earn literal trophies for the things you accomplish, like a certain number of combos or getting a KO under 1 minute. I think it's satisfying when the game recognizes your achievements. One of the things that makes life so worth living is getting those bursts of satisfaction from doing something or completing something. Life is really short, so the most we can do is take on the moment and be proud of the things we accomplish. You can't win them all, but you're bound to win one if you're willing to give whatever it is a try. Finally, the soundtrack is damn good. Another mix of stuff from the various Def Jam artists, and it's a great mix of some of the best tracks from every artist. Seriously, if you're somebody who exercises a lot and you're looking for a good-ass workout mix to get you going, just throw on the Fight for New York soundtrack and you're good. This is in my top 3 non-Tony Hawk soundtracks of all time. Like I said earlier, you can find a link to the whole thing in the description. It's definitely worth a listen. At the end of everything, I'll go ahead and give Def Jam Fight for New York a rating of 10 out of 10. I don't think I really need to explain that, do I? This game does everything right. It's the perfect sequel. It's a damn good fighting game. The teams did exactly what they set out to do. I'm still thinking about that quote from Josh Holmes. They said they wanted to do something revolutionary, and they did. There are really no other games like this. I don't think it's for lack of trying either. It would be a hard ask to get a modern development team to produce something as brilliant as this, because the actual development was just so much different than a lot of other games. The teams were working thousands of miles away from each other, so they had to have a level of communication that most teams could only dream of having. The EA of today is a far cry from the EA of 21 years ago. The only thing these two companies have in common is a shared logo, because it sure as fuck isn't a shared passion. You would never see something like the atrocious UFC 5 release back then. In 2003, knowing a game came from EA was almost a guarantee that it would be good. In 2024, EA ships games that make asset flips look like masterpieces. We could point fingers at who or what is responsible, but that doesn't really matter anymore, does it? There isn't really any good change or restructure in sight for EA, and the players who buy their swell of microtransactions are keeping them above water. So we can't change EA as they are now back into what they were. The most we can do is go back and appreciate the work of the amazing teams who made these games. Now that I'm done with all of that, I'm pretty sure I already mentioned that the next video would be the 1080 snowboarding games, but I only sort of alluded to what the videos would be after that. Thanks to you guys and your suggestions, I have a massive list of alternate day games with a wide variety of genres. I plan on covering as many of your suggestions as possible, and I also have some unfinished business of my own that I've been meaning to get to for a while. There's also one more Def Jam game to talk about, and it's an understatement to say that I have a lot of thoughts on that. So until next time, thank you, and have a nice day.